So today we're going to think about CVs from the position of a recent graduate.
Yeah.
So imagine I'm a recent graduate and I need to update my CV for the first time in probably a couple of years. Where do I start? Where would be the best place to start from in terms of what needs to go onto it and how I need to tailor it?
Okay, well, the thing I'd recommend is actually starting with a blank page, and first of all, get your career target in mind. So really know in your head what kind of role you're going to be applying for, with what employer, and what you hope your career progression to be, and keep these points in mind the whole time when you're writing your CV. Your CV really has to be tailored to your career target. So everything you write on that page has to reflect that goal.
So I've got my blank sheet of paper, and I've got the career in mind, so I'm wanting to go for a graduate job.
Okay.
How do I then structure what are the must-haves that need to go in, the nice-to-haves, and then the things that I should really not put in at all?
Okay, so must-haves, as I mentioned, it's really important that your CV makes it absolutely clear what your target is as a graduate. So the first thing I'd recommend is including a headline to flag your preferred direction. So a headline is kind of similar to your LinkedIn headline, but perhaps a bit snappier because you have 120 characters on LinkedIn, but just make it absolutely clear who you are and what your career target is from your headline at the very top of the CV, so that someone reading it understands why they're reading it, basically. So you, as a graduate, probably you don't have the experience to be able to call yourself by a particular job title, for example, sales and marketing professional, but you could use a headline that said career target and then indicate your job role afterwards. For example, career target business analyst, or careers target telesales manager, or whatever it is. But basically, make it clear right at the top of the CV what you're going to do. Next up, you really need a compelling CV profile, and I think we're going to touch on this a bit later on, but you need to add a kind of executive summary of your CV that shows your skills, your experience, and your career aspirations to the reader, and flag up right at the top of the CV what the recruiter needs to know. And this will avoid them having to sort of scurry through the CV and trying to find out who the professional you is and what the skills and experience you have are, and what you want to do with the things you've got with your assets. I'd actually recommend writing the profile last. It's kind of easier once you've got all your other sections in place.
Mm-hmm.
As a graduate, you'll need to present your education up front, because it probably is your most relevant deliverable that you're going to be able to bring to a new employer. It's been your main focus, your education, and it's been your main platform for achievement so far in your career in your career in education. So unless you've been in an employed role and it's been relevant since graduating, I'd probably put your education right after your profile on your CV. If your education is relevant to your career target, then you might want to expand a little and detail the kind of elective modules that you've undertaken in your degree, and talk about your dissertation or thesis, and just show the substance in your education as relevant for your target role. Next up, I really want to stress that it's important to make the most of your experience. Now, as a graduate, it's unlikely that you've got acres and acres of experience in the traditional sense from paid employment, but that's okay. I often find that graduates underestimate what they have achieved so far, although it's not in an actual job, if you like. But they can detail internships, unpaid work experience, degree-based research projects, and any extracurricular activities that can really enhance your credibility in the recruiter's eyes. So don't underestimate what you've done so far. If you showcase it in the right way, it's going to pique a recruiter's interest.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. And when I've seen lots of graduate CVs, they tend to overinflate the bits that I'm not really interested in.
Yeah, exactly. It has
underinflate the bits that I'm interested in. So they'll talk about their degree length, and also the different aspects of it, which have no direct correlation to the job that they're applying for, but they'll underplay any teamwork or any paid work experience or anything for me that shows transferable skills.
That's right, exactly. And they can come from unlikely sources. You know, you may think sometimes if you're targeting a role that's directly related to your degree, you might have actually done a really interesting research project, or actually been involved in something really fun and practical. For example, civil engineers, you might have been involved in one of the constructionarium projects, in which they replicate real life fantastic buildings, like what's it called, the Gherkin in London, and they build them on a smaller scale. And what amazing experience! It's like a real project to put on your CV, and that can be brought to life as well through LinkedIn, where you could feature it as a project, and you could add pictures of you as you're progressing your build.
So sticking with the education aspects, how far would you recommend that people go back in terms of listing educational things? So obviously university, but then A-levels, GCSEs.
It really depends. Sometimes people have done a lot of tertiary education, and they might have masters, a PhD, and so on. So it does depend on how much education you've got, but definitely not primary school, 100%. I would sometimes start with GCSEs if you've got an undergraduate degree like a BSc or so on. But if you've got a master's, you might just want to feature your first degree and your master's rather than going to the A levels. But it depends how much you've got to say on your CV. I mean, you might want to add your A levels in as something to say, but it will be a prerequisite for the next stage of education, so not always necessary.
And just on that point there of depends how much you've got to say, are you a 1-page or a 2-page kind of? I try to tend to produce a 2-page, providing that you can find some substance to fill it. I mean, for a school leaver, a one page is absolutely fine, but if you've done some part-time work experience, if you've done a few university projects, if you've been a member of, say, a society or represented your department at university, there's some things that you can draw out there that are going to show transferable skills to your reader. So I would advocate a 2-page CV. It doesn't have to fill the whole 2 pages densely, but it's a nice presentation, and it can work. I mean, I try and get, if you've got some relevant work experience, on page 1, I try and get your headline, your profile, your education, and then start with some experience. And I would always put relevant experience on page 1 of the CV. So, for example, if you're going into a related field to your degree, then I'd recommend putting any degree projects or relevant internships or work experience on page 1, to start on page 1, going on to page 2. Going for the more functional and skills-based approach as opposed to just chronological.
I guess. I mean, in each section, I advocate that you go for a reverse chronological approach. So with professionals of all levels, I would break your experience, providing that you've got 2 types of experience rather than you've been in the whole same kind of field the whole of your career. So I would put relevant experience up on page 1 and other experience to follow, and I would go for a reverse chronological format within that section. So present your most recent experience first and going back through the years.